Hello there, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Generation Films. My name is Alan. Everyone is in love with The Rock. The ladies want him, and the guys all want to be him. And a lot of that has to do with his amazing physique. Now, he might brag about how he puts in a lot of work at the gym every day, but let's be honest, guys, without steroids, a lot of these celebs would just look like the rest of us. There are always going to be people willing to go to extreme lengths to make themselves look like a super being and perform at super being levels. And so I thought it'd be a good idea today to look at 4 of the most intense super soldier training transformations. In 1969, a U.S. Army unit was in the process of securing a small village against North Vietnamese forces. The unit's sergeant, Andrew Scott, who for sure is an American and not some hulking Swedish chemical engineer, ends up going crazy and begins massacring the locals. He even makes a kind of cool necklace out of ears. When our sergeant spots a fellow soldier, Luke Devereux, who totally sounds like a Cajun and not some mad Belgian who loves running around and roundhouse kicking people in the face, the sergeant asks Luke to get in on the killing. But Luke is a decent guy and refuses to murder innocents, and so the two Americans end up shooting each other and killing each other. Sergeant Scott and Luke would both be labeled as missing in action, and their bodies would be recovered by a secret research program and cryogenically frozen. The two had just been posthumously volunteered into the Universal Soldier program, pioneered by Dr. Christopher Greger. See, Universal Soldiers were supposed to be the most elite counter-terrorist operatives. They were 100% loyal, and all of their memories and human qualities were erased, making them essentially killer robots. The process used dead soldiers who were first frozen with nitrogen-based gas. The damaged areas of the body were repaired by speeding up the cellular activity on a genetic level by using electromagnetic fields, along with an injection of special serum that stimulated enzymes in the cell. The last part of the procedure involved reheating the body and triggering the physiological reactivation of the body through thyroid and pituitary augmentations from another serum. I know that sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook, but I assure you this is a highly unethical and dangerous procedure. It also granted the Universal Soldiers with ridiculous strength and enhanced healing abilities, although when the body was in this mode, it tended to overheat and generate a lot of energy thanks to the fast metabolism. A neural serum was also given to the soldiers to repress any former memories they might have from their former life. Although even with the serum, Luke and Sergeant Scott eventually remember their past lives and weren't truly dead, which means they were basically trapped as slave soldiers. The Spartan II program was created while the UNSC was shopping around for a counter-terrorism elite special forces unit. The insurrectionists in the outer colonies were proving to be more difficult to wipe out than expected. Over 30 years, the insurrectionist war had caused humanity 5 billion lives and countless amounts of resources. If this conflict didn't end soon, it could lead to the downfall of all human civilization. Dr. Catherine Halsey of the Office of Naval Intelligence was the creator of the Spartan II program and perhaps also a mad scientist or maybe just a very patriotic human. In order to create the perfect soldier, Dr. Halsey drew inspiration from the ancient Greek kingdom of Sparta. In her notebook, she writes, "The beginning of wisdom is ignorance. So where do we begin to create the ultimate warrior? With innocence." A blank slate is what Dr. Halsey wanted, and that's exactly what she got. A bunch of children. You see, due to the extreme training and medical procedures that these children would have to undergo, it's very unlikely that any parent would actually volunteer their children for such a program. And so Ani decides to secretly find 75 candidates by looking at DNA gathered from the UNSC's Outer Colony Vaccination Program. Which is another great reason to get vaccinated. Not only will it prevent you from contracting space polio herpes, you also could potentially get selected for an elite special forces unit. So seriously, if you happen to be against vaccinations, remember that's exactly what the Covenant wants, and that's also what the Taliban wants too. I'm pretty sure Harvey Weinstein was an anti-vaxxer along with Hitler and the velociraptors that ate that little girl in the beginning of Jurassic Park 2. The point is, I don't really care what you do with your body because I believe that the celestial turtle that is holding up our Discworld is about to roll over. Which means unless we strap ourselves to the ground, we most likely will fall off the edge of the world. Anyway, we still haven't got to the most messed up part about this Spartan II program. You see, the Office of Naval Intelligence decides to kidnap all 75 children for their program and replace them with Flash clones. Most of these clones would exhibit all sorts of medical issues that would lead to death in a few years. because flash cloning technology was similar to microwave TV dinners back then. They might imitate the real thing, but at the end of the day, when you take Timmy out of the oven, he's gonna be a little soggy. After being kidnapped, the children are taken to their training facilities on the planet of Reach, humanity's bastion in the outer colonies. There, they were subjugated to a wide range of classes and physical training to prepare them for their future as elite commandos. Like the clones in Star Wars, these Spartan candidates would be given training at a very young age, giving them a significant advantage later on the battlefield. Most of the Spartan IIs were 6 years old when they were kidnapped from their parents, and by the time they were 14, they were ready to begin the bio-augmentation process, perhaps the most difficult part of the Spartan II training program. Prior to this, Spartan candidates pretty much looked like humans. They were in peak physical shape, but still recognizable. The bio-augmentation procedure is what really gets them to that next level. But in order to get the crazy gains that the program desired, it also meant pushing the boundaries of bio-augmentation. Brah. Do you even bio-augment, brah? Amongst the many procedures being done were occipital capillary reversal surgery, which increases the patient's visual perception but has 11% chance of causing permanent blindness. Then there was the carbide ceramic ossification procedure, where ceramic materials were grafted onto an individual's bones for increased strength. There was a failure rate of 3.8 for this procedure, especially if one of the subjects were in the middle of a growth spurt, which could end up crushing their bones. Then there was muscular enhancement injections, which of course increased muscular mass. Unfortunately, 5% of the test subjects experienced a fatal cardiac volume increase, aka their hearts grew too big. And that's just some of the very terrifying procedures that the Spartans had to undergo. And yes, there were several procedures, it wasn't just one or two. And the saddest part of this was that unlike the other tests and training they had gone through, everything was up to luck. Some candidates survived and others just died or suffered terrible side effects from the training. You see, the Spartans were in complete control of their future up till this point. Well, actually, they were kidnapped and then conscripted, but aside from that, they were in control of whether they would fail or succeed in the training, but this whole medical procedure really had to do with genetics. And so out of all of the Spartans that entered the program, 30 out of 75 were killed, and 12 others would wash out because of deformities. Only 33 would make it through the program. We're a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings here at Generation Films, and whenever we have the opportunity to talk about the Lord of the Rings, we take it. And so today we'll be talking about the Urukhai. They were a special group of warriors bred by the wizard Sauron the White at his base of operations near Isengard. They were also bred by Sauron. Urukhai means orc folk in Black speech. The average Urukhai soldier was far larger than your average orc and stood as tall as a human did, but they were significantly thicker and more muscular. These Urukhai were created to have the strengths of men and orcs, but none of their weaknesses. It was said that Saruman crossbred a type of goblin from the Misty Mountains to the orcs in Mordor, and that's what created the Urukhai. The Urukhai were bred in pods that were buried deep in mud. We're not really sure exactly how this works and if a stork or some kind of baby fairy is involved like it is with humans. But we do know, technically speaking, in Lord of the Rings lore, orcs are just messed up elves that have been tortured and corrupted. Sort of like how Benicio del Toro looks like an evil version of Brad Pitt. I mean, great actor, love his work, but you know, the face. So maybe the Urukhai were born the same way that orcs were born. The point is, life for an Urukhai was not easy. From the second you were born, you were pushed into an extremely aggressive and crude society that put strength and combat prowess above all else. Should you have any natural limitations or deformities, you better overcome them, or else a larger Urukhai will most likely step on you and then eat you. But if you do survive your training, the Urukhai were an elite fighting force with access to some of the best weapons and armor and machinery that the forces of evil could create. Because of your elite status, you actually had a better chance of surviving battle because you aren't being used as cannon fodder like the lesser orcs. The wonderfully gruesome world of Warhammer 40k. You knew we were going to have to talk about the Adeptus Astartes or Space Marines if we're talking about gruesome physical transformations for super soldiers, right? The Imperium of Man is humanity's last hope in our very terrifying future. And the Space Marines are really the only thing holding back the hordes of chaos and other degenerate Xenos. Sure, you had large legions of Imperial Guardsmen, but they were really little more than speed bumps for whatever terrifying horde is attacking the Imperium on any given day. The Emperor of Mankind created the Space Marines to be the best of humanity, and in pursuing such lofty goals, made the Space Marines as inhuman as possible. I mean, just look at the size difference between these two guys. They clearly are not the same thing, just like how Jeff Bezos is a different thing from Vin Diesel, who himself is a different thing from The Rock. Space Marines trace their roots all the way back to the reunification wars when the Empire was not really the Empire yet. In those days, Thunder Warriors, genetically engineered superhumans, would fight on the front lines for humanity. They were considered the precursors of the Space Marines. Space Marines are separated into individual chapters. Each chapter has their own rules, cultures, traditions, and procedure for transforming recruits. In general, the process began with selecting young warriors who displayed a lot of courage, strength, and ability. A lot of times, the worlds from which Astartes were recruited from were technologically backwards and featured a strong warrior culture. The local inhabitants didn't really understand technology or space travel or space marines, so they kind of viewed the Space Marines as demigods. So serving within the Space Marine order or chapter would be one of the highest honor you could give your family. Feral worlds, or rough and primitive worlds, also provided excellent recruits, as did hive worlds, which had super-populated megacities. All candidates were screened for spiritual purity. The ruinous powers of chaos were constant danger, and corrupted Space Marines were everyone's worst nightmare. If they passed all of these selections and trials, then they would have to undergo a series of deadly physical trials that usually differed from chapter to chapter. If these recruits manage to survive these trials, they eventually go through the biological transformation from human to superhuman by using what's known as a gene seed. Gene seeds are developed from the genome of one of the original Primarchs, the God Emperor's lieutenants and first super soldiers. Although the technology for creating such seeds were long lost, each chapter had their individual seeds, which gave their Space Marines unique characteristics on the battlefield. The seeds had to be implanted at a young age, around 10 to 16 years old, and the patient must have immunogenic compatibility with the implants. There are 19 genetically engineered organs that are implanted by this gene seed into a Space Marine's body, and that's where they get all their special abilities. Some organs are redundant, like the secondary heart organ that increases energy and serves as a backup one in case the first one fails or disappears somehow. Just like the Spartan IIs, the Astartes also have ceramic implants on their bone structure to increase their strength. Then there's the Laraman organ, which generates synthetic biological cells that are attached to white blood cells. In the event of an injury, the Laraman cells will actually promote increased blood clotting and prevent the individual from bleeding out. The Betcher's gland is two separate glands that are created inside of a Space Marine's mouth. These glands can emit blinding acid, which can also melt through metal. The implantation process takes several years, and a high percentage of the recruits are lost because of the incredible stress the process places their bodies under. But when they are finished, they emerge as Scout Marines with enhanced physical and cognitive abilities that no other soldier aside from the Space Marines had. So there you have it, guys, 4 Special Forces units that required a lot from their recruits. Let me know in the comment section below which organization you'd want to join. That's a joke. You wouldn't want to join any of these. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. And as usual, thanks for joining us today. My name is Alan, reminding you that life is a movie, and you are the protagonist.